Sure. Don Munson,
Here.
Bob Anderson,
Here.
John Brandhuber, Ruth Gonzalez,
Here.
Gail Rober, John Spicer,
Here.
and Scott Tompkins.
Here.
We also have our city council liaisons and Tim Starkovich, who's going to be commenting on the action item that we have tonight. Tim, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Okay. So we've got a couple of things we've got to do first, and then we'll get right to it.
No problem. I'll be here.
We need the approval of the minutes for January 12th.
I'll make a motion to approve. I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Motion approved.
Gail needs to unmute herself.
Sorry, aye. I'm there. Hey.
Do we have anyone sign up for public comment tonight? And if we do, would you please hold it to 3 minutes?
And Mr. Starkovich is going to be talking about item A on the agenda. Would you rather have it in public comment or after the agenda item?
After the agenda item, please.
Okay.
So we move on to new business. Item A.
Okay, the new business is a lease amendment with Westar and acknowledgement of use. As you all know, Westar is one of our largest tenants here at the airport, has a lot of the buildings over the industrial park. They have a new subtenant called E&M Partners LLC that will be part of the legal marijuana growing and processing industry. Westar does not have an acknowledgement of use. The commission may recall that we require that on anybody who is in the legal marijuana business because we have federal grant assurances. And what the acknowledgement of use basically says, although it's legal in the state of Washington, if the federal government ever decides that they want to enforce the federal law in states where it's legal, that the lease becomes null and void. And so anybody who's in that business on any airport property has to have a signed acknowledgement of use saying, yes, we know that that's what will happen. I don't think that will happen. In fact, I think Congress is actually looking at least decriminalizing it in this administration. But this covers the airport in the event that the federal government decides they don't want to do that anymore. So the Westar has asked, in order to do that, we had to do a lease amendment to show this on there because their lease does not include this. So we have to do a lease amendment with Westar and then get the acknowledgement of use from them as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Are they growing or processing or both?
This will be growing and processing,
So
is
both.
my understanding, yes.
If I may ask a question here, please. How many plants do we have around the Arlington area and businesses that are allied to the marijuana process?
I believe there are 14. Not all of those are on airport property, but they may be around the airport.
Yeah.
I think we have about 6 on airport property, 5 or 6. So yeah.
I'm very much aware of the large one that's at the bottom of the Glen Eagle Hill on 67th. That I can't remember the name of the plant, but it's a pretty large plant there. I'm unaware of any odors that are coming from it. I'm unaware of that. But I was just wondering about the proliferation of all these, of all the businesses around here in one area only.
It's, well, the Liquor and Cannabis Board only offers a finite number of licenses for a particular jurisdiction for grower processors. So like I say, I think best of my knowledge we're around 14, and this may be a good point to bring in Mr. Starkovic and any concerns he may have.
Hey, Dave. So you and I met on the property
Mhm.
back in the fall, I guess. And we're currently considering expanding our facility. And ideally, that means we bring in some high-end clients as tenants for ourselves. One of our concerns is odor for sure. There's a grow operation in Anacortes and I live here. And when I drive by on Highway 20, if it's blowing out of the south, you can smell marijuana. And this particular location is really close to our hangar currently. So knowing the pending investment we're hoping to put into our property, it's of large concern for us that it's going to be an odor that we smell regularly in our facility or our sublease facility that we're planning on building.
I understand that. They are regulated by what is it, Pacific Clean Air Alliance or something along those lines. And they have to provide filtration and they're inspected regularly. They have to provide a filtration for that. Although, you know, depending on where the wind is, we smell it at our office from that large growing operation that Scott mentioned from time to time. And it can be fairly strong, but it's, you know, it doesn't have any properties that would affect any, you know, senses or anything. And from an airport perspective, I have to look at it like, well, I drive by these farm fields every day, and when they fertilize them, it's really, really, really bad. And you know, it's less pleasant than the marijuana smell. And as it is a legal business and it is highly, highly regulated, my concern is that we would face some kind of discrimination complaint from them, as we have many other grow ops in and around the airport. To say, well, you can't do it, I'm afraid would kind of stir up a can of worms.
So is there, and you say they're highly regulated, is there any mechanism in place to address odors from?
Yes, that's that Pacific Clean Air Alliance, I believe it's called.
Right.
And they are like the environmental regulators.
I would check with the state regulating board that gives the requirements for what they have to have in the building and how they have to manage the process itself. Because there is equipment that you can get that will filter out smells and odors and so that it doesn't have an impact. So it seems like it would be something that would be regulated through their regulation system that the state has, as well as through the building department. And
It is.
so it's not something that we could probably change, but it's something that you may be able to go to those other agencies and get that question answered, or get them to do some investigating and make some additional requirements if it is becoming an issue. Because I know I wouldn't want to have that smell outside my office either. So I think that it's something that needs to be addressed. Dave, you mentioned the agricultural and the odors from that. There is actually state requirement when you're building and purchasing property that is or is adjacent to agricultural land that you have to acknowledge that there are odors associated with it. So as this industry is developing, I think it's something that we need to address. But I don't think it can come from us at the Airport Commission, as far as we can't regulate it. we could definitely comment to the departments and agencies that can. But I think it is important to look into.
Well, the Liquor and Cannabis Control Board,
Those guys, yeah, I didn't know what their name was.
yeah, they are the regulators for design requirements, and CED, our building department, when they inspect these facilities, when they're building them, they make sure that they have that equipment or they don't get, occupancy, right? So I know that they're all following all the rules, and I do know it can be obnoxious at times, and it is at our office as well. But I think it's the Pacific Clean Air Alliance is like kind of like the Environmental Protection Agency or the state environmental folks, except these folks are all about clean air, and I think they work with Department of Ecology on that, and those might be some areas where you might be able to get a few more answers.
Yeah, our concern isn't that the air is not clean, it's that we have to smell it. And if we spend $2.5 or $3 million on a hangar we're planning on building, and we're showing our new facility to a Boeing field operator that's trying to move up here because of investment from Amazon and potential airport expansion, it sort of devalues the neighborhood if we all have to smell that 24 hours a day in our facility. So that's our primary concern, knowing that we're planning on investing money in our property. And is when you say discriminatory action, can they take that against the airport on a sublease tenant?
Well, that's really more of a question for city legal than for me, but it would be allowing some to do it and not allowing others to do it is discrimination,
Mhm.
And so precedent has already been set for that. And like I say, it's not a can of worms that I really want to open.
Understood.
Dave, I've got a quick question. Hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to check, Tim, you mentioned that on Highway 20, you get that obvious odor.
Yeah.
Is the hangar that you have on 59 Drive experiencing a heavy odor at this time?
My guys complain about it on occasion, yeah.
So it's not consistent.
Pardon?
It's not all the time.
It's wind direction dependent.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
And Dave, I did do some research on this, and you are correct. It is the Puget Sound Clean Air Agency that does monitor these. They do have applications that they do have to fill out. I did go a little deeper and read some of their oversight, some of their guidelines. And because it is kind of an up and coming industry, their guidelines are pretty loose at this point in time. Make sure the doors are sealed, the windows are sealed. There's going to be odor that does escape. That's just kind of the fact of life. But I guess if anybody could research it further, the Puget Sound Clean Air Agency is the group that possibly Tim would like to talk to. I don't see that the airport has much that they can do about it. And I was reading where certain cities in Colorado have started implementing city codes for this type of thing, but that's not the norm with everybody. It's new, and yes, it is evolving. So Puget Sound Clean Air Agency is probably the agency that Tim would like to talk to, but I did find their guidelines and their help kind of loose.
Yeah, our concern is that once the sublease is approved, the trains left the station, and there's no teeth behind any sort of enforcement with the odor that we have to face as their neighbors. So, yeah, I mean, I guess we'll have to deal with that. But it's disappointing having been on the field since 07 or something that.
Dave, may I ask a question, please?
Sure.
Now this sublease is going to be at the north end of the airport, close to
In the
Sunbury
industrial
Road.
park, yes.
Have the neighbors been canvassed about this? All because there's a lot of homes in the area.
there's already a lot of marijuana processors are up there, and we've not had any complaints,
I see. Okay.
you know.
So
So they, and I would say, Gail, that they have air scrubbers that they're required to use, and it's quite expensive because I know that CED went through this with one that was not complying or not meeting that, and they had to upgrade their air scrubbers to meet the Pacific Clean Air Agency's guidelines. So I do know that
Correct.
our building department inspects and requires those things on the grow operations.
Right. And Puget Sound Clean Air was giving examples of charcoal filters, a variety of different filters and flow rates that they suggest. I did not find anything where it was mandated per square footage. So I know that CED is on it. I know Arlington hopefully is on it. It's just, it's an up and coming industry that we all are going to have to learn how to navigate.
So my question about the subleases, I mean, we have a lot of commercial real estate downtown Seattle, and our subleases are typically not to be unreasonably withheld. Do you guys have similar language?
I'm sure we do. We don't really control subleases. The person or entity that we have the lease with controls the subleases. All we require is that we have contact information of who that sublessee is.
And financials?
That's up to the lessee because they're the one who are paying the annual payment.
I got it. Okay. Okay. I didn't realize Westar was such a large tenant. So they occupy a lot of space on your field or in the airport property?
One more time.
Oh, Westar, they're a huge tenant in your properties there?
They own almost all of those buildings in the northeast corner of the industrial
Got
park over there.
it. Okay. Okay. So I guess based on what I'm hearing, there's no real action for us to take other than find out what the requirements are and I guess we live with the odor when it blows out of the north.
I would hope that if it's a concern that you would move forward and at least let the state and the regulatory boards know, because if the codes are weak on it and don't have a lot of guideline, because it is a new industry and they weren't, maybe they didn't know that that was going to be an issue, that it can be modified and updated and amended to address these issues. But if they don't know that they're there,
Yeah, fair
they're
enough.
not going to change anything. So I really would encourage you to let your voice be heard so that they can address that with the codes.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that. Well, thanks for letting me sound off on this. Appreciate the time.
No, thank you very much, Tim.
All right.
Yeah, thanks, Tim.
Bye-bye.
Any other questions from commissioners on this item?
Is this going to be a topic that could be incorporated into the lease that Westar and the airport have? Or is this going to be done on like a case-by-case basis?
It will be whatever the building code requires. So they will be bound to the same filtration requirements as all the other marijuana processors in the
Right.
area.
I meant as far as the letter that these lessees would have to acknowledge that if should the federal government take a turn and decide that this is illegal. I noticed that Westar has put verbiage in on this particular issue. So I didn't know if the parent agreement between Westar and airport would put this in as a new addendum that would just always follow.
Yes, that's why we had to do the lease amendment.
Should it be easy? Okay. Gotcha.
Hey, Dave, now this would be a new grow operation, right?
That is my understanding, or it's possible that they got somebody else's license, somebody that might have gone out of business. Maybe they acquired their license.
But at least new to the airport area.
I'm sorry, I can't hardly hear.
I'm sorry, a new grow business to the airport area.
That is my understanding.
This is not an expansion. This would be another grow operation coming in. So
That's how I
whatever
understand
the,
it, yes.
whatever the current smell problem is, this would actually potentially add to it.
Correct.
Okay.
I will say, however, that, you know, there are a lot of industries that put out smell, whether it is, you know, the telephone pole coating company over there, or whether it's marijuana, whether it's agriculture, whether it's Seattle galvanizing. It is a light industrial area, and there are emissions from different companies that come out over there. And I just don't see how we can allow some to operate and not others without running into legal difficulty.
I agree.
I think the dump smells worse than the rest of them.
Well, and it's one of those things that there are code requirements for different types of industries, and the code does acknowledge hazardous chemical businesses and buildings that house that. And there are specific and different requirements for those things, and they do have to be identified when you're getting your permit. And some of them are required to be monitored. You know, you build a house and you're done, but for things like that, you're not. There's ongoing things that you have to check. And if somebody does complain, you have to make sure that you are in compliance, and they will check. So it does get monitored, but there, like I said, there's a little bit of smell that's gonna get loose no matter what. But there are guidelines, and this is such a new industry that they're probably just not strong enough, or they need to be reevaluated as the industry grows.
It's my understanding that they have permission a couple times a day to do a purge, and that's when everybody smells it. The rest of the time, you can stand right alongside in the building and smell nothing.
It
I'm not-
seems like
I'm not
whenever
quite
I
sure.
drive by, whenever I drive by the grow operation that's at the bottom of the hill where we live, Scott, I pretty much always smell it every time I drive
Oh, you
by.
do?
So in that particular one, yeah.
Okay.
It's not super strong, but I know it's there.
Yeah.
And I must admit that I don't smell it as much as I did initially, but my wife is very much aware of the smell when she drives down there. So
Okay.
she probably has a much more sophisticated sense of smell.
Well, another argument might be that most of the young people in this area actually like the smell. So,
Well, it's better than the pole yard, I'll give you that.
yes,
Area.
But I think they might have cleaned up their operation a bit.
Not
It's
much.
been a long, what's that?
Not much.
Not much? I haven't smelled it in quite a while, so.
Well, I thought the pole side of that company is no longer there, and that Hampton Lumber is now there, that they're not doing the pole.
No, they're
Um,
still,
correct?
they're still hauling poles in and out of there.
yeah.
But they're not processing them there, are they?
Yes, they are.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and there is actually a plume underground of that pollutant that goes to the north of that facility towards M&O, and where we put in Backstrom Curb and Sidewalk, we had to do a study, and it is almost to there from that pole yard. So even if you might not smell it, it's still a pollutant that is in the ground. So
I tell you, the two septic tank companies on 67th do a pretty good job too. A1, or was it A1 and that other one? They can get pretty ripe sometimes.
as I
You
said,
cracked me.
it's not really, I don't think the airport's place to take this on now, since we have probably 4 or 5 on airport property already. that we have allowed. I think if Mr. Starkovic is concerned that he should take that to Community and Economic Development and the Clean Air Agency and those kind of things, if it becomes a problem, he can give his 2 cents on that. But I don't think it's a good idea to not approve it.
I agree.
And I'm sorry, who is Mr. Starkovic related to or dealing with? Who does he represent?
Lightstream, which is that really nice large hangar up on the north end on the east side, the really pretty nice hangar up there. They have a corporate jet and a King Air up there. And, it's a nice place and everything, but, it employs about 2 people. And then you have to look at the jobs created by the marijuana industry as well. And they are considering doing some expansion up there, but you have to remember airplane hangars aren't in use 24/7 or even 8 hours a day. It's when people go get in their airplane and they leave or come back. It's not like a house or a 9-to-5 business. It does not work that way. And I really do not agree that it would be a detriment or bringing down the neighborhood, if you will, of that part.
I agree.
Oh, I agree too. But of course and I do thank Mr. Starkovic for taking the time to at least come forward and give us his opinion. Sometimes community involvement and getting communities to talk to each other is a really hard thing to do. And maybe it's not always positive, but I think it was fabulous that he came forward and gave us his 2 cents worth. I think that's valuable information.
Yeah, and he had his say, and it makes us all more aware of that. Actually, it's the first complaint I've ever got about it. I mean, people will say something, if you're out in the parking lot, or "Whoa, it's strong today," or something like that, But it's the first complaint from a tenant I've ever received. So.
Well, it's open conversation, and I think that's good.
Yeah.
Do we need a motion?
Dave, is this an item we're going to vote on?
Yes, sir.
Can I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion. I move to authorize the lease amendment to West Star Lease and the related acknowledgement regarding the proposed E&M Partners LLC use, and authorize the mayor to sign them in a form approved by the city attorney and acceptable to the WSLCB.
Do I have a second?
Second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
I
Motion carries.
abstain on the basis that I don't know enough about it.
You're abstaining?
I am abstaining.
Okay. One last note I will make, and that is that Westar, we receive about $1.25 to $1.5 million a year in their leases. So they're very large, our largest leaseholder, and their buildings employ hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. So I think that's a factor to consider as well. So thank you.
Okay.
Do we have an update from the council, please?
I don't have anything this evening, Don.
Okay. Any information from Dave?
Michelle, did you have something?
And no, I was just going to say that I didn't have anything for today, but thank you.
So, Marty, you want to talk about the next item?
Yeah, just a few informational items. Hopefully I don't get kicked off. My internet seems to be struggling tonight. We're in the process of kicking off the 2022 construction project design. That's going to be the runway 1634 mill and overlay. we're working with our engineer Dal on this, and they're getting ready to put the engineering together with that. And we're going to go out for an estimated fee with another engineer. That's a IFE, they call it. That's taking place here probably in the next week. The vaccine site is up and running at the airport. We vaccinated about 16 to 1,700 people today alone. There's enough vaccine to probably go through Friday and Saturday of this week. We don't know the levels for next week. We're pushing into week 3 of the program. Seems to be working pretty well. It's consumed a tremendous amount of time at the airport staff. Be honest with you, the support from the Department of Emergency Management is lacking at best. So the airport has had to step up and really support this venture. And hopefully they'll get their process up and running so we can get things like porta potties, garbage, isolation between public and working airport. We just got a bunch of cones out there right now. We've had to maintain the roads and some spots that are heavy traffic they don't get typically. There's a lot of parking on the grass that during the rainy season it's been difficult. And in addition to that, it's a non-aeronautical activity. So we have ultralight flights that are taking place.
I
think
we
we've lost
lost
him.
you, Marty.
In place, and so moving forward, we think that's going to work out okay. The airlift wrapped up last weekend, very successful, and I don't have the numbers yet for how much equipment and product went out to tribes all over the state of Washington, Idaho, and Oregon in some cases. But suffice to say, the hangar was full of pallets. So it was a real nice thing to see our volunteer pilots at work. One of the tenants offered up the hangar site for the use, no charge, for 3 weeks. So it was very effective. We're really proud to have been a part of that. Finally, the construction wrap up. Construction season is over. We are all done with the exception of a second coat of paint on a small striping area and the Bravo taxiway, and some seeding. We've got to do some hydro seeding in some areas that got washed out with some big rains. But that project was also very successful, very close to budget. We're still cranking out the numbers. Now we'll probably be a little bit over budget. We did receive some money back from the FAA on the check flight, so that kind of helped put us back in line and onward and upward. We don't have a big project this year for the summer, so we're preparing for the 2022, which will be a big project for the 1634 Milne Overlay.
And that's about all
Thank
we've
you,
got
Marty.
tonight. Any other questions?
Do I have a motion to close?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. Good evening, folks.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good night,
Good night.
everybody.
Bye-bye.